Chapter 8, Real Life. Tuesday. The FIRSTTHINI register is a heaviness across my stomach, a bar of gentle pressure, like a weighted blanket, only concentrated. A cold breeze wriggles through the sheets. I nestle back into the delicious warmth behind me. My head spins from the motion, my stomach roils, something stiff rocks against the backs of my thighs, and a bolt of heat, of warmth, goes down my center. Holy shit! I scramble upward, eyes snapping open on the pewter gray of morning, blankets snared around my thighs. I'm on the floor. Why am I on the floor? Why am I on the floor with him? I search my immediate surroundings for clues. King-sized bed, window open above it, a damp wind wisping in, bare legs, covered with goosebumps. And the shirt I'm wearing. No, shit, tissue paper thin, faded to near transparency, long enough to reach a third of the way down the fronts of my thighs but somehow not long enough to cover my whole ass. A cartoon horse barrel racing with a cartoon cowboy on its back, yellow serifed font superimposed over it. This ain't my first rodeo. No, absolutely not. This is not my shirt. Sure, it used to be my favorite shirt to sleep in, but once that UPS box of my stuff showed up, a whole 2 days after our breakup, I'd stuffed this shirt, along with every other trace of Win I could find, into the Kratamp barrel box from our first set of shared dishes and shipped it right back to him. Why am I fixating on the shirt? Surely, I should be panicking about the fact that my ex-fiancé Tilda copyright is lying on the floor beside me, bare-chested, face half buried in a pillow, his arm still a dead weight across my lap and his erection wedged against me. PSST, I shove him. He rocks right back into the same position. I've always been a terrible sleeper, whereas Win, who never stops moving while awake, sleeps so hard that I used to check his pulse in the night. Get up. I shove his shoulder harder. His eyes flutter open, slitting against the half-light of morning. What? He grumbles, one eye closing to better focus on me. What's wrong? What's wrong? I hiss back. How did this happen? How could I let this happen? How could you let this happen? Hold up. He pushes himself up, scrubs his hair back. Tell me what happened. What happened? My whisper pitches up to a tea kettle whistle. We slept together. When? His eyes widen. Slept together? He laughs hoarsely. When would we have slept together? Harriet? In between you and Kimmy doing body shots and me, literally, carrying you up the stairs? But, I look around for all that evidence I'd catalogued. I'm wearing your shirt, because you puked on yours, he says. And when I went to get you another one, you demanded, quite vehemently, the I've been to so many fucking rodeo shirt. I gawk at him, trying to recall the night he's describing. That doesn't sound like me. Are you kidding? He says. You once told me you wanted to be buried in this shirt, and then that you didn't want to be buried, so I'd have to cremate you in it. I don't demand things, I say. Yeah, he says. That part was a pleasant surprise. Wait, the front of my head throbs. I push my hands against it, hard. Why am I on the floor? Because you refuse to take the bed, he says. And why are you on the floor? Because, he says, I refused to take the bed first. I think you were trying to make a point, but you passed out pretty fast, and then I was worried you might get sick again and choke on your own vomit. Oh, another nail pounds into the spot above my right eye. My stomach makes a noise like a possum who's both dying and in heat. I remember chugging the glass of wine in the kitchen and going back onto the patio. I remember Parth playing one of his famous party playlists through the fancy outdoor speakers hidden in fake rocks, and everyone dancing, except Cleo and Win, who hung back by the fire, deep in conversation, and I remember how despicably beautiful he looked, backlit by the flames. Then Parth hauled him and Sabrina bodily over to the rest of us, and I remember telling Win that sitting by the fire, he'd look like the devil, and him saying, "Stop flirting with me, Harriet," and me feeling angry and something else entirely. Things get fuzzy after that, probably for the best, if that last little flicker is anything to go on. Why don't you feel like complete shit right now? I ask. Probably, he says, because I drank half as much wine as you, and 100% fewer shots than you took off Kimmy's stomach. That was true? I say. I did a body shot? No, you didn't do a body shot, he says. My shoulders relax. You did 4 body shots. Why didn't anyone stop us? I ask. Probably because Cleo went to bed early. Sabrina and Parth were having the time of their lives, and every time I came near you, you'd rub your ass on my crotch until I left you alone. I scoot abruptly back from him. There is absolutely no way I did that. Don't worry, he says. It was clearly vengeful grinding. I rub the heels of my hands over my eyebrows. Win reaches back for the glass on the nightstand behind us. Drink some water. I don't need water, I say. I need a time machine. I'm not made of money, Harriet. Water's all I've got. I swipe the glass from him. As soon as I've drained it, he plucks it from my hand and stands, padding into the bathroom portion of our fuck palace and turning on the faucet. I crawl toward the balcony and push up onto my knees to open the door, dragging the blanket outside with me to swallow some big gulps of fresh sea air. The sun's barely come up. There's too much mist to see much of anything. Everything's a shimmering gray. Here, I flinch at the sound of his voice. Win stepped out beside me and holds the refilled glass out, along with a couple of ibuprofen. Begrudgingly, I down the pills. I don't need you to take care of me, I say. You've always made that clear. He lowers himself to sit beside me on the damp wood, his arms coiled around his knees, his gaze out on the water, or where the water must be, hidden behind the silver curtain. Since when do you drink like that? I don't. At his look, I add, under usual circumstances, but as you recall, these circumstances are less than ideal. He pushes his hair out of his face. Can I ask you something? No, I say. He nods, his gaze steady on the invisible horizon. My curiosity bubbles up until I can't ignore it. Fine. What? You're happy, aren't you? He looks at me sidelong, the corners of his mouth tense, thoughtful ridges between his brows. That exaggerated seesawing sensation rocks through me, only with the added benefit of there being a turbulent ocean of alcohol in my stomach. There's no right answer. Tell him he did the right thing, and he gets absolution. Tell him I'm not happy, and I'm admitting that even now, a part of me wants him, that he's gone back to being my phantom limb, an unstoppable ache where something's missing. I'm saved by the bell, except the bell is an air horn up at top volume, blasting through the hallway, followed by a muffled shriek, Kimmy, of grocery, gladiators, bitches. Parth lays on the air horn again. Win lumbers to his feet, his question forgotten, my answer avoided. At least someone remembered to hydrate before bed. Chapter 9, Real Life. Tuesday. I have never loved a grocery store, I say, like I love this grocery store. I love all grocery stores. Sabrina wheels our cart around an end cap toward the Crayola Bright Produce section. Honestly, I have a hard time with grocery stores now, Cleo says. Once you start growing your own fruits and veggies, everything else pales in comparison. Oh, is that so? Sabrina pauses to feel a couple of mangoes. I wouldn't know. Something about the way she says it makes it clear it's a barb, or it at least suggests that, and then the way Cleo's eyes flick up but don't fully roll confirms it. I've told you, Cleo says. You can visit in the winter. Things are too busy now. She shoots me a look. Open invitation. Harry, if you and Win want to come up to the farm then too, we'd love to have you. I focus on checking a box of strawberries for mold. Because this adorable coastal market has been blessed by angels, there isn't the tiniest bit of fuzz. I check 3 more boxes, all of them mold-free. Seriously, I say, this is the best grocery store on the planet. You like this grocery store because you don't have to make any decisions because you're always with us, and I'm good at making lists, Sabrina says. And you hate every other grocery store because I'm not there to meal plan for you. If you moved back in with us, we could fix that. She turns to Cleo, and Parth and I are amazing house guests. By the way, we always bring chocolate babka from Zabar's. She says it flatly, in her unbothered Sabrina way. But I can tell by Cleo's expression that the little jabs are landing with some force. We didn't cancel your visit because we think you're bad house guests, she says. Things just got hectic. Before Sabrina can reply to that, I jump in. Well, I'm so glad you and Kim could still make the trip work. That means a lot. Cleo's mouth softens into a smile. I'm glad too. She brushes a hand over Sabrina's elbow. I mean, how often do 2 of your best friends get married? Sabrina grins now too. Irritation apparently forgotten. Well, in this case, at least twice, since we'll still have to do a big family wedding next year. Plus, if Parth has his way, there will probably be 3 or 4 more sprinkled in there somewhere. Well, of course, I say, you've got to make sure it sticks. From the far end of the shop, I can hear Kimmy barking orders at Win and Parth like she's a musher. Their strategy in this pseudo game is always to go as fast as possible, which means they end up having to circle the whole store like 3 times, while Cleo, Sabrina, and I lazily meander, testing fruit and sorting through the impressive imported cheese fridge. There are usually even a couple of Cleo's favorite nut cheeses. The game's gotten more elaborate over the years. We are now to the point where Sabrina makes the list, cuts it into tiny one-line strips, folds the strips, puts them in a bowl, and has each of us take turns pulling random grocery items out until both teams have an even number. Another reason I know this is not a real game, Sabrina clearly does not give one single shit about winning, and she is always hyper-competitive. Hold on a second. Cleo ducks down the row of fridges and returns with 3 large coconut waters. She drops 2 into our cart and pushes the other at me. You're green. Sabrina examines me. More like chartreuse. A flash of memory. Parth shoving green drinks with paper umbrellas into our sweaty hands as we danced around the patio. I wince. Don't say that word. Sabrina cackles. What about puce? Puce is more like a dark red. Cleo puts in helpfully. Like if one were to puke up red wine? Sabrina asks. I grab a loose Maine blueberry and throw it at her. At the front of the store, someone is whooping, "We Are the Champions" starts to play over phone speakers. Wow, Sabrina says, tossing a couple of blueberries into her mouth. They win again. Who'd have thought? How is Kimmy even alive? I ask, let alone whooping and cheering. I don't know, dude. She's superhuman, Cleo says. Plus, she woke me up to tell me about the body shots, and I took the opportunity to pour 3 gallons of water into her mouth. Her brow arches. Kind of surprised Win didn't think to do that for you. He was totally sober when I went to bed. I busy myself with another package of blueberries. Aha, I spin back. See that? Mold. Every rose has its thorn, Sabrina says, angling our cart back toward the front of the shop. Just like every cowboy sings a sad, sad song. Another flash of memory. Me, kneeling on the ground, atop the comforter Win's dragged to the floor. Arms up, baby, he says gently. He peels the ruined white t-shirt over my head, runs a cool washcloth over my collarbones, collecting what's left of my mess. I can barely keep my eyes open. Did you get me the shirt about the rodeos? The "I've been to so many fucking rodeos" shirt? I got it, he says. Arms back up. I must not lift them high enough, because his rough palms catch the undersides of my biceps and ease them over my head. Then the butter-soft fabric is being tugged down around me, pulling against the tops of my thighs. I love this shirt, I grumble. I know, he says, sliding my hair out from under the collar. That's why I brought it. Now go to sleep. Cleo jolts me out of the memory. You actually are puce now, that word. I press my hand over my mouth and bolt for the bathroom. The instant I step under the jangling bells and into murder, she read, I feel 500,000 times better, which is to say, I still feel like utter shit, but shit in constant books and sun-warmed windows. Shit with sugary iced latte flowing through its veins. I've never finished a chapter on one of these trips, let alone a book. But I've always loved coming here, picking out my next read. Win and Cleo split off for nonfiction, and Kimmy darts to romance. Parth heads for general fiction, and Sabrina veers toward horror. I alone head for the black coffin mounted to the wall, door ajar and waiting, mysteries painted in gold letters at the top of the box. I step through it to the room beyond, a space nearly as large as all other genres combined. I'd never been a big reader until the summer before I started at Mattingly, when all my high school extracurriculars and AP summer work abruptly ended. My acceptance to, and funding for, the school of my dreams was already assured, and I was bored for the first time in my life. I found the dime store mystery in Eloise's old room, now the family office. When I went in to look for packing tape, I sat on the windowsill to read the first page and didn't look up until I'd finished the book. Afterward, I went straight to the library for another. I probably read 20 cozy mysteries that summer. I run my fingers along the paperback spines, each title featuring a worse pun than the last. As I pull one out, Cleo appears at my side. I thought you'd read that one. This, I hold it up. Maybe you're thinking of Dying to Give. The one about the auctioneer murdered at the fundraiser. This one's Dying to Sieve, about a baker who finds a body inside a bag of flour. A whole body? She says. It's a really big bag, I say. Or a really small body, I'm not sure, but for a mere $6.99, I could find out. Did you find something already? She holds up a dictionary-sized tome with a giant illustration of a mushroom on its pale green cover. Didn't you already read that one? I say. Her mouth curls. You're thinking of Fabulous Fungi. This is Miraculous Mushrooms. How silly of me, I say. She leans away from me to peer through the doorway to the rest of the store. So what do you think about all this? All what? Sabrina and Parth, she says. Getting married in like 4 days. I guess when you know, you know. I slide the book back onto the shelf and keep skimming. Yeah. A moment later, she says. I guess things have just felt a little off with her. Really? I haven't noticed anything. But then again, I haven't been exceptionally present the last few months. I've known that the next time we talked, really talked, I'd have to talk about the breakup. Maybe I'm reading into it too much, Cleo says, swirling her raspberry iced tea. But last month, she texts me out of the blue that she and Parth were going to come up for a visit, and I said yes, because she seemed set on it. Only later I realized we were way too swamped, so I asked to reschedule, and I've barely heard from her since then. When we got in yesterday, I tried to talk to her about it, but she brushed it off, and then today she seems mad about it again. My fingers stop, hooked over a spine. Murder in the maternity ward. I think she's just taking this cottage thing hard, I say. I don't think it's personal. Cleo screws up her mouth. Maybe. She lifts her braids off her shoulder, shaking them to fan her neck. There's no airflow in here, and the humidity is dense. I guess I'll try to talk to her again tonight. I just wanted to see if you'd noticed anything different with her. Nope, I say, probably a bit too chipper. I think everything seems totally normal. Cleo's head cocks. I'm fully expecting her to cry. You and Win broke up, didn't you? At any second. Instead, she tucks her arm through mine and rests her head on my shoulder. I'm probably just tired, she says. I always worry more when I'm tired. I frown. I've been so self-absorbed, or drunk, that somehow I missed the way her face has thinned, and the faint purple blots beneath her eyes. Hey, I say. Are you okay? Why wouldn't I be? That's a weirdly evasive reply for Cleo. Because you run a whole ass farm, I say, and you are but one dainty 5'2" woman. Her smile brightens her whole face. Yes, but you forget, my girlfriend is a 5'10" Scandinavian American goddess who can drink 4 barrels of moonshine and still win a grocery store race. Cleo, I say. She checks over her shoulder, then drops her voice. Okay, yes. I'm stressed, she says. The truth is, Kimmy and I went back and forth about bowing out of this year's trip for the last 3 weeks. When I told Sabrina we might have to miss it, it did not go well, so we decided we'd come for a couple of days. Only now we can't head back early after all, so we're scrambling to have neighbors go take care of things for us at home. I'm so sorry, I say. How can I help? It's okay. It's 1 week of stress. Well, in the full week it will take us to catch up on the time away. Hey, for some reason, quite possibly all the subterfuge I'm currently engaged in, I jump when Sabrina pops her head in between us. Cleo does too. Don't sneak up on us. I literally just walked up, Sabrina says. Did I catch you two in the middle of a drug deal or something? She reaches between us to grab Cleo's book, scrutinizing the cover. Mushrooms? Again? Cleo's lips thin. They're fascinating. What about you, Sab? I cut in. Did you find anything? Oh my god, yeah, she says. This book is a fictional take on the Donner Party. How nice, I say. She cackles, grabs the book out of my hand. I didn't realize I was holding one. I must have yanked it out when she surprised us. Harry, she says, reading the back of it. This book is every bit as fucked as mine. I guarantee it's not, I say. An interior designer finds a hand behind a wall, she says. Yes, but it's cozy. I take the book back. How is that cozy? She asks. It's a cozy mystery, I say. It's hard to explain. Okay. Her voice wrenches up into a wordless yip of surprise as Kimmy appears at her shoulder. Beside me, Cleo grabs for the edge of the bookshelf, as if for support. Why is everyone so jumpy? Kim asks. Sabrina's reading about the Donners again, Cleo says. It's fiction, Sabrina says. Cleo asks, where are Parth and Win? Are they finished? Kimmy shrugs. I passed Parth by the fancy books. What are the fancy books? I ask. She means he's looking for something the New York Times has described as a revelatory, Sabrina says. Actually, Parth walks up with a paper bag already in hand. I picked this because the Wall Street Journal gave it such a cranky review I needed to read it myself. It's by this married couple who usually publish separately. One of them writes literary doorstop novels and the other writes romance. What? Kimmy snatches the book. I know them. Seriously? Parth asks. I went to college with them in Michigan, she says. They weren't together yet, though. Her books are really horny. Is this one horny? The Wall Street Journal review didn't touch on the horniness, Parth says. Is Win done? Sabrina asks. Checking out now. Parth confirms. What did he get? A Steinbeck novel? She asks. Parth shrugs. Dunno. There's no way Win's getting a Steinbeck novel. I'm surprised he's buying a book, period, since we never have time to read on these trips and he's cautious with his spending. But if he was going to get a book, it wouldn't be about the American West. He would have felt like too much of a caricature. Parth and Sabrina herd us toward the register. Cleo gets her mushroom book and I buy Death by Design, and then we step out onto the cobbled street. The sun is high in the sky, no trace of mist left, only dazzling blue. Across the street, Kimmy spots a flower cart in front of the florist stand. With a squeal of delight, pulls Cleo after her. Parth and I are gonna grab more coffee. Sabrina tilts her head toward the warm cup. The cafe tilde copyright next door with the owning sheltered walk-up window. We've already been twice today, once before the market, once after. Want anything? She asks. I'm good, thanks, I tell her. Win? He shakes his head. As they wander off, we stand in silence, avoiding gazes. I meant to tell you, he says finally. I talked to Parth last night, and, he clears his throat a little. You're right. We'll have to tell them after this week. I'm not sure why that floods me with relief. The rest of my week is now guaranteed to be torturous, but at least Parth and Sabrina will get their perfect day. Win gets a text. He's not usually so attentive to his phone. While he's checking it, I lean toward him a little, trying to peer into his paper murder. She read back. He stuffs his phone back into his pocket. You can just ask. Ask what? I say. His brow lifts. I stare back at him, impassive. Slowly, he slides his purchase from their bag and holds it out to me. It's huge. The Eames Way, the life and love behind the iconic chair. This is a coffee table book, I say. Is it? He leans over to look at it. Shit. I thought it was an airplane. Since when do you buy coffee table books? I ask. Is this some kind of trick question, Harriet? He says. You know these don't require a special license, right? Yes, but they require a coffee table, I say. And Gloria's won't have room for this. Win's mother is a pack rat, not in a gross way, just in a sentimental one. Or rather his father was, and Gloria hasn't changed much about the Connor family home since her husband passed. The last time I was there was hardly an inch of space on the refrigerator. She had a printout of a group picture we'd all taken at the cottage on our first trip taped up there, right next to a save the date for one of Win's cousins, who'd already gotten married, divorced, and remarried since then. His older sister Michael's engineering degree sat on the mantel, right next to a framed one-page short story his younger sister, Lou, wrote when she was 9. Beside a framed photo of Win's high school soccer team. Aside from the lack of space in his childhood home, this book had to have cost at least $60, and Win's never been one to spend money, not on himself, and not on anything whose value is primarily aesthetic. In our first apartment together, he used a tower of shoeboxes as a side table until he found a broken one on the street that he could fix. He slides the coffee table book out of my hand and drops it back into his bag. I'm still staring, puzzled, trying to make sense of all the tiny differences between the win of 5 months ago and the win in front of me, but he's gone back to checking his phone. Kimmy comes bounding up with a bundle of sunflowers. "Where are Parth and Sabrina?" she asks, shielding her eyes against the sun. "Sabrina needed more coffee," Win says. "And Parth needed more Sabrina." Aw. She clutches her heart. "They're so cute." "Terrifying, but cute." I catch Win peeking into the bag again, sort of smiling to himself. In my chest, a metric ton drops onto the proverbial seesaw. Oh my God. The beard, the slight softening of his body, the $60 coffee table book, all of the texting. Is he nesting? Is he dating someone? The seesaw jolts back in the other direction. A burst of cold air conditioning and roasted espresso beans wafts toward us as Sabrina and Parth emerge from the coffee shop's lesser-used interior. "I don't know about you all," Sabrina says after a loud slurp on her paper straw, "but I could use some popovers." Ordinarily, the thought would make my mouth water. Right now, the idea of dumping fried egg and jam into my seething stomach is worse than hearing puce 1,000 times in rapid succession. I smile so hard my molars twinge. "Sounds great." "Aw, sunflowers. Sab loves those." Parth leans over to smell them. Kimmy thrusts the bundle toward him. "These are for you and Sabrina." "They're just a sample," Cleo puts in. "We went ahead and ordered some bouquets for Saturday. I know you want it to be simple, but it's not a wedding without flowers." Sabrina goes from eyeing the bouquet like it might be some kind of Trojan horse, sneakily stuffed with tiny mushroom encyclopedias, to clapping her hands together on a gasp. "Cleo, you didn't have to do that." She hooks an arm around Cleo's head, pulling her in for a hug. "They're gorgeous." "You're gorgeous," Cleo says, starting down the street, the rest of us following like baby ducks. "No, you guys," Parth says. "I'm gorgeous." Win hangs back beside me, asks tersely, "What just happened in there?" "In where?" I say. "Your brain," he says. "Body shots," I say. "My brain is full of body shots." "Both a surgeon and a medical anomaly," he says. "What can I say?" I reply flatly. I know." He waves his arm in a circle. Vast. My stomach lurches at the years-old inside joke. I was going to say hungover. Chapter 10. Happy Place, Maddie NGLY, Vermont. A new apartment for our senior year. The first floor of a peeling white Victorian at the edge of town. Windows that rattle whenever the wind blows. A half-collapsed porch where Sabrina and I intend to spend the fall sipping brandy-spiked hot cider. And a patch of side yard where I promise to help Cleo plant a vegetable garden. Broccoli, cauliflower, kohlrabi, things that can withstand the frost that will arrive in a few short months. Win was supposed to be in New York right now, sharing a loft with Parth, making his way in a new city while his best friend studies law at Fordham. If he hadn't failed that math class a second time or overlooked his history gen ed requirement, everything might be different. Instead, he's living with us, to save money. Cleo and I share the biggest room. Sabrina gets the next one. Win has the shoebox originally intended for me. The morning after move-in day, Parth has donuts delivered for us. The note reads, "If you don't all come to grad school in New York next year, I will be pressing charges." Realistically, I'll have to go to whatever medical school will take me. Likewise, Sabrina will have to choose her next city based on her own law school admission, and Cleo will do the same with an MFA program. But the idea is alluring. All of us together in a new city, even as I'm unsure how I'll survive 1 year as Win Connor's roommate. Our whole first week in the place, we manage not to be alone together. Finally, though, we bump into each other early one morning in the stuffy kitchen. The sun started to come up, and he's making coffee. He fills a mug with the Montana state flag printed on one side and passes it to me. "I want you to know I understood what it you said," he murmurs. Back in Maine, his voice, still husky with sleep, pulls all the tiny hairs on the back of my neck to eager attention. His closeness, here in the quiet morning, is overpowering. "I don't want you to worry about this year," he tells me. "I won't make things weird." I manage something that sounds sort of like oh good and sort of like someone with both stage fright and strep throat has taken a crack at public yodeling. And then he's nodding curtly, letting himself out the back door to cut our grass before the day gets too hot. And once again, I'm left waiting for a spell to break. He's true to his word all year. A couple of times a week, he goes out with women the rest of us never meet. Then, in winter, he starts seeing one woman, again and again, a dancer named Allison. She's beautiful, she's nice, but she never stops by for longer than a few minutes before the two of them leave for the night. I try to be happy for him. That's what a friend would do. You're not my friend, Harriet sometimes replays in my mind. He struggles with his math class, so I volunteer to help him. On Tuesdays, we study late into the night in Mattingly's dusty golden library. He moans, groans, says his brain wasn't made for this kind of thing. What's it made for, then? I ask, and he says, tumbleweeds. They like to just stroll through. I've noticed that he does that, talks himself down, self-deprecates, and he does it like it's a joke he's in on, but I think he might mean it, and I hate it. While we're studying for finals, he brings me vending machine coffee and chocolate chip mini muffins, Snickers bars, and Skittles, and even with all that caffeine and sugar and the rush of being close to him, I drift off to sleep, face down on a textbook, and wake to him nudging my shoulder from across the table. When I lift my face, he grins and smudges the transferred ink away from my cheek. Thanks, I say sleepily. What are friends for? He says. You're not my friend, Harriet. The four of us cook elaborate dinners together in our cramped kitchen, Sabrina acting as sous chef. We sit on the front porch while Cleo sketches us in 100 different poses, and when it snows, Win and I take long walks through town to get hot chocolate or maple lattes, despite the fact that he hardly touches sweets. When one of us goes to Hannaford for groceries, we double-check whether the other needs anything, and even if I say no, when Win walks into the apartment, he'll set a pint of blueberry ice cream on my desk in front of me, without a word. And when Sabrina and I get our respective acceptance emails from Columbia, her from their law school and me from their medical school, and in a shocking twist, Cleo announces she's going to work on an urban farm in New York City rather than getting her MFA, I don't even resist the prospect of the four of us finding a new place with Parth in New York, of sharing yet another set of walls with Win Connor. He's become my best friend the way the others did, bit by bit, sand passing through an hourglass so slowly, it's impossible to pin down the moment it happens, when suddenly more of my heart belongs to him than doesn't, and I know I'll never get a single grain back. He's a golden boy. I'm a girl whose life has been drawn in shades of gray. I try not to love him, I really try,